Welcome to One Sharp Sword, cutting through to what matters most. I'm your host, Dr. P, Dr. Wayne Pernell, the exponential success coach and the president of Dynamic Leader Incorporated. I have a very special guest with me today. A lot of people reach out and they're like offering themselves to be on my show these days. And I get to be a little selective, and it's great when I am presented with people who are aligned in terms of how do we get better? How do we become more mindful about our lives? And how do we show up as better leaders? And when I learned about Eric Holsapple, I wanted to know more. And so I said yes. And I might have just not said his last name right. And so Holsapple.
Close enough.
Close enough. Eric Holsapple. Please, just like, yay, welcome to the show. I appreciate you being here, Eric. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me on, Dr. P.
Yay.
Really appreciate it.
It's really great. So you've got this whole thing that you're doing now around leadership, and it's not just leadership. You take people through a full-on program about how to be more mindful in leadership. And that appeals to me because I'm really looking at how to create a culture of caring out there. And I believe that starts with leaders who understand who they are and understand that the people that work with them are human. So talk a little bit about your work, and then I want to wind back the clock and talk a little bit about how you got to do the work that you're doing now.
Yeah. Well, our featured program is a 9-month program. It's a deep dive, and it starts pretty shallow, most assuming people haven't had any experience in mindfulness. And we start with 2 minutes of meditation and some gratitude and those kind of things, and work up. And then after a couple of months, the mind starts to settle down a little bit. We start to get a little more focused. And then we start working on blind spots, strengths and weaknesses, sabotages, and purpose. What is, we always say, I can't get motivated, or I can't get my team motivated. And I've really found that it ties directly to purpose. That if someone, and I think leadership's the same, if you find people stepping into leadership that you wouldn't least expect it when they're motivated by purpose, when they find out who they truly are and something they really care about and feel like they can make a difference on. So right now, and we're talking about meaning of their lives and purpose, inner purpose, outer purpose. Inner purpose is really, to wake up, to realize that I'm a conscious being, that I have things outside my body that I have access to. Waking up to that, and then can I take that to what I do? Can I take that to my various roles of parenthood and work, and coaching and athletics or whatever? And that, I find that to be in the zone. When I can experience my inside world and the outside world at the same time. That's in sports. The most common reference of that is when an athlete is in the zone. They're just totally present. And I've really found ways to do that, not 24/7 and not all day, but I didn't know ways to do that at work. How can we be in the zone at work and not? I just think it's a terrible waste to work all day so that we can have a life when we're outside of work. So we work really hard on finding ourselves present at work. And then how do we turn that focus, that flashlight, off at work and on our home life when we go home at night? And be present there and not constantly dragged back in, because it's really over a long time that people just start noticing what's noticing and noticing all the distractions that are out there. We just pulled, the business is so beautiful at pulling us in every direction. Every slice of our attention is grabbed somewhere, and we can multitask, man, but we can't focus on all those things at once. So we have to decide, choose through purpose what we want to focus on. Then we create a new vision for ourselves and, try to live into that, launch into that. The whole time creating habits, because I believe you are your habits. And your self-concept and your habits are who you end up being. So you have to, most of us need to extinguish some bad habits and foster some new ones. Because I've just found we can have the greatest vision in the world, the greatest commitment, and the intellectual understanding. But if our habits are amiss in it, if our habits are, not aligned, we don't have much of a chance. But if I can align my habits with my concept, my self-concept, and what I really want with my life, then I got a real chance. I can wire all my operating systems, the ones that are on and the ones that are off, that aren't totally conscious right at the moment. I can align them all towards a vision rather than having them sabotage me when I'm not paying attention at the moment, when I'm off my game, which is, a good part of the day.
So it's interesting. And just in a few moments, you've said probably 6 months worth of material. So
yes, exactly.
That was, so I want to back it up a little bit because, and I've been taking notes as you've been talking. You didn't use the word integration of work and life because you could have, yeah. Because, and so that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm bringing that word back, is to say really mindfulness is about work, is about the integration of work and life, and recognizing that it's life, that you're not, and it's real presence. And to back up where you started, to go all the way back to where you started and talk about, okay, so the program is 9 months. What you said at the very beginning was sometimes it's you'll take 2 minutes of gratitude and meditation, and that a lot of people haven't even experienced that. And so, assuming that our audience members know what gratitude is or know what meditation is, but they don't really do it, because knowing it and doing it are very different sometimes.
Definitely.
What would you say is a great way, because this is all about, when you talk about mindfulness and mindful leadership, the more mindful you are as a human and recognizing it's not just integrating work and life, it's integrating life, and it's not just integrating internal and external, or it's not living dually, it's living in this integrated way. Do you have ideas for how people can just start? Like, what would you say to someone who's listening who goes, oh, you know what, if I get this, it might make sense to do the next step?
Yeah, I think it starts with an intention, to be more mindful, and then to start noticing, and then pick up something. I mean,
what does it mean? Let's go to the very basics, Eric. What does it mean when people say, and I mean, you and I know what mindfulness is, and my guess is that we might even have different definitions of it, because it's kind of personal too, right? The experience of mindfulness is kind of personal.
I focus on professionals. I feel my niche is not, there's people that are more steeped in mindfulness practices, Eastern traditions, all that, than I am. Where I feel that I'm carving a path is that I've found ways to do it at work. And I believe, so I boil it down very, very succinctly. My mind is full of what I'm doing at the moment. Focus. Mindfulness is focus. Can I focus on what I choose to focus on, to the exclusion of all the other opportunities out there? Because there's a plethora of things going on in the landscape at any one time. And what I choose to focus on. And then can I just notice when I'm there and when I go away? Can I come back to it? Can I notice when I'm there and when I go away? So I try to keep it really, I mean, there's $10 sentences about mindfulness, and it's all great. And all the things in there, non-judgment, compassion, all those things, they allow you to focus better.
Yes.
Because if I'm judging something, I'm not focused. I've made a decision already. So can I focus and pay attention to something? It is primarily what we do. And we do it in small slices because we're not used to it. We're used to thriving on distraction. We love to be distracted. So we've got the habit of not being present. So to get a habit, I believe you start small, a couple of minutes of some practice that is training my focus. And it's more like training a puppy than anything else I can describe. It's, the puppy keeps getting off the newspaper. I grab the puppy, my mind, and put it back on the newspaper. It runs off the newspaper. I grab the puppy and put it back on the newspaper. Not for an hour, 2 minutes. And then I go do something else, and then start noticing. And over time, my mind calms down a little bit. And I become more efficient because I'm more focused. I have more time. And also I crave more because in those gaps between thoughts, when one thought stops, another one starts, is where peace and joy and harmony exist. Stress and anxiety live in what we think about things, not in what actually happens. So we start to notice and get a little bit of a separation, just a little glimpse of a separation between our thoughts and who we really are. Watching the watcher of the thoughts, the noticer of the thoughts, the noticer of the sight, those things. And then that's a game changer. When you get to that, that's just a start, but that's a taste of something that you go, gosh,
That's huge.
that felt really good.
That's huge. When you, it was Fritz Perls back in the late 50s, early 60s. He was the founder of Gestalt psychology. He talked about actor observer.
Yeah.
And so being in that space, and other people have written about it, certainly. But to be in a place of I'm in the moment and I'm watching myself in the moment. That's not a distraction. That's actually a very heightened level of presence. I think that's an amazing place to be. And it starts with, can you spend 2 minutes just being in the moment? Can you spend 2 minutes just in a space of focus? And as you said, if the puppy goes off the paper, if your mind goes off of that thing you're focused on, bring it right back. Just bring it right back.
Just notice. Just start noticing. And then you notice it throughout the day. Start noticing. Sorry, Dr. B, I wasn't really here for that. Could you repeat it?
Yeah, very nice.
I was off somewhere on another journey.
Very nice. Yeah.
Because what about, and then what a gift that is when you're talking with someone, and I start training people at work because I think it's just more applicable. But when you're talking to somebody and have them feel like you're really listening to them, to hear what they're saying, not to preparing what I'm going to respond to, but
and
actually
acknowledging that.
Yeah.
Right? Acknowledging
yes. And rather than just always preparing for the next thing I'm going to say to fill the space, God forbid there be a silence to fill it. And then, always training at work, and then you go home and you go, your wife or husband go, wow. Thanks for listening.
Exactly. Exactly. That kind of presence is such a gift. I was going to say, you and I both did something ahead of the recording that ensured a little bit more presence that we'd each give each other. And that was, we shut off our phones. Yeah. And that's a deliberate act. It's a deliberate act. Like, what does it take? I've stopped wearing the any kind of electronic watch. I usually have an analog watch on. And that came from, I used to have the watch that would send me alerts. It was an Apple Watch, and I thought it was great because tech, and I could get all my things, and I'd be talking to my wife and clearing a message, and talking to my wife and clearing a message. And at one point she goes, "Do you have somewhere to be?" I'm like, what? She goes, you're involved with.
They're our best teachers. They're our best teachers. Right? Wives and kids are our best teachers.
She was like, you're involved with your imaginary friends. And I'm like, what? They're not Oh. And it was at that point I made the choice to, from Thursday evening, I was going to train myself to not wear the watch all day Friday and all weekend. And at that point, it was like, I don't actually
So
need more
I went
thing.
back to an analog watch in the
Yeah,
last
I
year because I
usually wear
found
the
I thought I was celebrating that I've gone to one thing, my phone. But I found that I'd look to see what time it was, and then I would go down a rabbit hole.
right.
You know, every time I want to see a phone, oh, there's so and so texted, blah
Yeah,
blah, and I'd go into that thing. So yeah, it's a practice itself. The other thing I'd say when you say the phone thing is that's what we try to do at meetings. You know, is meetings aren't productive. They're too long at
agreed.
work. People are so distracted. So we try to say, could we shorten it and just be here? If you got something else to do, go do it. You know,
I love that.
but here we're gonna meet. Instead of an hour, it's 30 minutes. You know, if you got to take a call, please excuse yourself. We're gonna try to shut the screens down and talk to each other. You know, we have permission to do a little centering before we do it, and you know, let's have a meeting. Let's get out the meat, and then go do the next thing we got to do. So
What a great commitment.
That email will wait a half an hour, a day. Yeah. It'll wait.
Yeah. I just had I had lunch with a bank president. It was somebody I've interviewed on my show, and it was breakfast. We had breakfast together, and he was talking about reflecting on his years as a bank president. And he said one of the things that he did was remind his team, we're a bank. It's not life or death for many people, any of the decisions. Like, let's just get done what we need to get done and have a good time doing it. And remember that we're here to serve people. And I think for any business, isn't that great? It's like, what a great message.
Well, one of the other, gifts of being a little more present at work is noticing how much we discount people that we work with. I found myself getting to know enough about people and enough little conversation to get what I needed, and then I move on. If I don't need something, I don't even know they're there. To, actually realizing they're actually people with hopes and dreams and families, just like you and I are. And they deserve to be, noticed and recognized. And good morning. One of the practices we have is, for leaders, especially when you go in the office in the morning, before you get going and just in your trance with your screens, walk around the office. Walk around the office once, just notice who's there, say hello, and then go back in and do. But, notice people.
I think this message is so important, and it's whether you're in a leadership role or whether you're in a support role, you can be a leader by doing exactly that you walk around, that you are connecting human to human, that you're reminding people. Like, one of the greatest gifts that a leader can give, and this is, it doesn't matter what your title is, if you do this, you are a leader, is to remind other people of their strengths and of their humanity, and like remind them of the things that they've forgotten about who they are.
And we've got one of the ones in our mindful leadership program now is tasked for the last month has just been, noticing the significance of those around them.
Yes.
We get so that we have a high self, many of us leaders get so that we have a high self sense of ourselves, of our own value, that everyone's around to serve us, because we've got such important things to deliver on.
Right.
But we don't actually recognize, and for him, it's been going back and recognize the significance. It started at work, but then he's noticed, how he does that with his wife. And it's been quite transformative to notice all the significant things that she does for the family in the day.
I think that's so huge. And even to do it when you're out in the community, do it at when you're buying your next groceries, coffee, whatever it is, notice the other person.
I think that's one of the reasons I got into this work originally was just running at 150 miles an hour.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about your journey. Where did you start? because you're based in Denver or just outside of Denver now.
Yeah, I started I'm in a little town in Maine. I grew up. A little town in Maine. My dad was a football coach, and I came out to Colorado during college and ended up going through getting an MBA and hopped out into a real estate job. And I was immediately successful. I was I was a manager within a couple of years, president of a North American division for an Australian company. This was back in the 80s, when the Japanese were invading the country and with buying all the real estate, owned 60% of downtown Los Angeles. Well, there were other places. The Australians weren't far behind them. They were just smaller, but they were buying things. And so I'd been an athlete and love sports and all those things, but I went into a business career and it was 70, 80 hours a week, and when you work for on the other side of the globe at 6 p.m, when you checked out of the office, you got on the phone with them. And I found that I was just on a treadmill. I was outwardly very successful. I had the title, I had the Mercedes, the apartment, all the stuff, but inside I was dying. I was overweight. I wasn't doing any exercise. I was single. I was drinking too much. Those things. So I got a transfer to Boston. They had a New York Stock Exchange company in Boston, and they got in trouble with it and sent me to Boston. The best news was there were enough problems in town I didn't have to travel, because the week before I think I traveled 50 out of 52 weeks. But so I was in town. I had to go back and forth to New York, but that was a day trip on the shuttle. And got a nice apartment on Boston Harbor. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go get a scale. Where I was hanging out, there weren't any scales in the bars I was hanging out in. So I went and got a scale. I stepped on that and I knew I was having, I couldn't get my tie done and I couldn't get my belt quite buckled, but I wasn't giving up. I wasn't going buying new stuff yet because it just wasn't there. But I stepped on that thing and it was like a shock. I looked at it and I remember looking in the mirror and having that aha moment of going, you got to make some changes or you're not going to be around very long. And I'd had some chest pains when I was in my early 30s. And that moment was a snap. And I just went, okay, I'm going to make some changes. I worked to leaving that job. I lost some weight. I started running again. I'd been an track person, and I hadn't run in 5 years. And I started doing that again. And somehow I stumbled on yoga. I don't know how. I didn't know anybody that did yoga. I'd never been to a yoga class. This was 1990 or something, that wasn't all over on every corner like it is today.
Right.
I started with a DVD and it was a game changer. I'd become disconnected from my body. It was like Ken Robinson, the author, said, my body was something that took my head from meeting to meeting. I started noticing through awareness through my body. That was a game changer. And then I mentioned my dad was a football coach. My oldest brother was a poet, and they were like oil and water. He was estranged for the family, but he did what my dad said, grew cuts, played football. But, after graduation, he left, So I watched my brother took up meditation. He and I were close. He was one of my mentors. And he took up meditation, and I noticed him come back to the family. And then he opened up to my dad. My dad opened up. He started talking, and my dad didn't change a lick. He was in his 70s. He was, an authoritarian football coach. You'll do it this way. And it was the first time I'd seen one person change the whole world. Changed my world. I got my family back. And if anybody's had anything estranged like that, or people within the family not, and most of our families are dysfunctional, just at varying degrees. So he said, do you want to try it? I said, yeah, I'll try it. And it was a game changer for me immediately. And I started to practice, and I'm a pretty disciplined person. So I just started it with morning yoga and meditation practice. But for years, I didn't come out. I kept it to myself. I wasn't running around a business meeting saying I'm doing yoga and meditation. I mean, most people didn't even heard of it back then. So I just did it myself for years and years, a little bit at a time, but I was disciplined. I had a practice doing it. I'd gone back and gotten a PhD in economics, do that, went back out into business. And one by one, people just started noticing me change and asking me, what are you doing? What's this? What would you do in this situation? Historically, I was going at such a speed, I wouldn't even notice you had a problem or that you even wanted to talk to me because I was just going to the charge in the next hill, How are we going to build that shopping center? How are we going to do this? Let's do that. And I still have that, but I started being someone that could slow down enough. So we started a seed group at the company, myself and another fellow, where we once a month sit down, read a book, work on, we didn't call it meditation, we called it centering. Before I knew it, the room was full. People that were interested in getting to know each other, slowed down a little bit, and learning some new things. Business people, top business people. I was teaching at the university part-time too, and just met these kids that would come as an internship and then start in the company. They're brilliant people. Then we ended up bringing in mindful-based stress reduction, an 8-week program, for the whole staff. And then the management team got together. I was one of the facilitators, and then they renamed the vision statement to Mindfully Creating Community.
Wow.
Which was a game changer because it gave everybody permission on the clock.
Yes, it did.
To be mindful, and to everybody's involved in nonprofit work. We took some company. I mean, I had done a big thing in that because I was teaching and doing a bunch of other things in addition to business. So anyway, I just saw such great results. I ended up starting a nonprofit called Living in the Gap and training other professionals, and then wrote a book to try to, share the message with the business community that it's a business culture and it's a business strategy.
That's
it's
excellent.
A different way that can not just change your business, it changes lives, changes communities.
That is so good. To go to judgment for a second, I love that so much.
I'll take that judgment.
You are bigger than the life you are leading. It really is time to attend to that thing you've wanted to do or have, but you've been putting off. It's time to step into that dream you've parked for someday. It's time to claim true well-being, both personally and professionally, without giving up the success that got you here. It's time to check out Dr. Pernell's signature small group retreat, the Exponential Success Summit. Explore exponentialsuccesssummit.com. Seats are extremely limited as this is a very special small group event. www.exponentialsuccesssummit.com.
One of the key pieces that is a side benefit that most people don't get about meditation, about being centered, is that when you change yourself, when you really drop into yourself, you can't help but change the nature of the relationship that you have with the people around you.
I have a saying, one meditator changes a household.
Absolutely.
Everybody,
yes.
People start and they say, geez, my husband or wife would just do this. They should. And I say, well, hold on. They don't need to do it. Only one person needs to do it. It's you. They might choose to, but
start.
If they choose to, it's because they see a change in you.
That's exactly right. Be that person. Be the, what I call the beacon of light. Be that person.
Well, it's like my brother changed our family. He was the only one doing it. He changed the whole family. He opened it up.
And that's the whole thing. We're in such a fast-paced society right now. And you said, it's easy to multitask. And
I'm brilliant at it.
Well, I'm gonna, there's a phrase that I use that's different from multitasking, and I learned it years ago, and it's toggle tasking. Because the truth is, we're terrible at multitasking. We toggle task, which is I do one thing, then the other, then the other, then the other, then the other. And the reset, the brain reset, it takes a lot of energy. So if you're distracted and then you got to come back and focus, and you're distracted and you come back and focus, it takes a lot of energy to do that. Yeah. And so to be in a place of, I'm centered, I choose this. Another thought comes in, I acknowledge it, I'll just park it. I'm present, I'm doing this. And what a difference that makes in in your household, in your meetings.
Totally.
Like, I mean, for one of the things that I challenge my leaders to do is, when was the last time you noticed the color of the person's eyes that you actually sat next to in a meeting?
I'd feel that one.
You know?
I would feel that one. That's a good one.
Yeah, it's like, so I've got an Oxford talk, and it talks about, how about I see you before how are you? Hey, how are you? And it's like, that
Well,
doesn't do anything.
I got
Like,
one. I got one for
hey, I
you
see
that I
you.
noticed. We do the first couple of months of our program. You can't talk about careers, business people. We
Excellent.
don't allow them to talk about what they do.
That's so
Because I
good.
say what we're trying to do is bring who we are to what we do, not what we do to who we are.
That's
Or you
so
sit on a
good.
plane. If you want to do it, just sit on the plane. The first thing is, what do you do?
Yeah.
And
So
it
yeah. So
hijacks
what do
the
you
whole
do?
conversation. You never, then all of a sudden the hierarchy is set up and the conversations goes just like this direction. And it's the most meaningless thing usually you can imagine.
I,
Versus we don't ever get to know who somebody really is.
I have a playful thing that I learned a while back also, and I love this. And that instead of starting with, well, what do you do? It's like, what's your favorite sandwich and where'd you get it?
I love that.
Isn't that great? Because it's like,
Yeah.
oh, favorite sandwich.
One of
Well, and
one
it's this
of
place, right? And it puts you back in a particular time and place where you were
well,
when you had it, and
what I
it's
do is
emotional.
I kind of ask somebody if they're going home or leaving home, and then try to dig into where they're from and that kind of stuff a little bit, you know,
It's so
uh,
good.
because it's just so we've become so hierarchical in our business
Yes.
that it's when we say, well, you're not your job, you have a job, you know,
You're
who
not
do you
your
who
job, you have a job. It's
yeah,
so good, right?
who do you want to be? Because really, if you're the same person, if you can, a clerk at my mother taught me this because she was one of the most enlightened people I'd ever known. Well, you can be the clerk at the grocery store and change somebody's life, you know,
Yes.
and
Yes.
you can be the CEO of whatever, and cause damage.
Yes.
Who do you want to be?
It's such a great question. And that is, it's like, what do you want for and in your own life?
Yeah.
And that is everything from finances to relationships to location. What do you
We,
want? And then who do you need to be, or who do you want to be to have all those things? Like,
I, I, I
that's the
train
personal changing.
I train leaders to be more and do less.
Nice.
Don't
Yeah.
be a doer, be more, and then, have a checklist of all the things that only you can do. Because then you can create some space. If because you need to create some space to be accessible, to let things calm down a little bit, to be able to focus and strategize. But what can only you do? And then how do you just be more for the company? How does somebody know that you're accessible? How could somebody walk up and talk to you? If they had some great idea for the company or some tragedy that's happened, are you the one that they're afraid to tell? Hoping nobody finds out? Or are you open enough that they know you'd come in and say, let's go figure out how to fix that?
Yeah.
Let's go handle that.
Yeah. You and I have both, I don't know, I'm assuming you and I have both met our share of leaders who are, they're living in positional power.
Exactly.
Right? Because of their position, they become inaccessible. Instead of, because of their position, they are the most accessible. And that's so important, right? Are people afraid to approach?
The best leaders have some humility.
Yes.
They
Agreed.
realize they get their self-esteem from their humility. They don't get their self-esteem from their position.
Nice.
That
Very true.
It's funny. We had an assistant one time. I was going in, the trash bag was overflowing. It was just overflowing in the lunchroom. And I went up to her and I said, hey, that trash bag is overflowing. And she said to me, yeah, would you mind taking it out? I said, I gulped for a second and I go, no. But then I said, where does it go?
Oh, that's awesome.
So I had to figure out where the dumpster was, and I did it. And she said, well, this is you. I said, what an amazing person. Yeah, would you mind taking it out? That'd be great.
That's so good. That's so
It is.
good.
It is good. It was very humbling. I needed it.
That's really good. I ran a hospital-based institution many years ago, and one of the things that I would do on my calendar was to schedule what I call DOTF, day on the floor.
Oh, awesome. Management by
And
walking around. Good.
MBWA, right? Management
Yeah.
by wandering around. And for me, it was truly day on the floor because I'd show up in jeans and a t-shirt instead of, my suit as the administrator. Jeans and a t-shirt. I walk up to one of the line staff and I'd go, look, today I'm working for you. What are we doing? And they'd be like, what do you mean? Be like, what do you do? What does your day hold and how can I support you?
Yeah.
I need
Yeah.
to learn what you do and how you do it so that maybe I can help make your day easier. And we'd be mopping floors, we'd be changing
Awesome.
beds, we'd be, all those things.
Change your perspective.
Totally. And change theirs, because as soon as they found out I was doing that, they were like, it's my day with you. It's my day with you.
Well, you became human too for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? It's like they become human for you. You become human for them.
That's exactly right. It's exactly right.
Mm.
Yeah. This is great. You want to talk about the 12 pillars?
Sure.
You've got.
Yeah, and I can do it. Yeah, there's 3 of the 12 pillars that are, I'd call them foundational. First one is be present and practice mindfulness. And anybody that accomplishes something, I found that's lasting, at least, from artists to musicians to athletes, they have a practice. They practice it. You can go Gladwell's 10,000 hours or whatever it is, but it's practice. Masters practice things. So be present and practice mindfulness. There are various things that you can do. Everybody doesn't have to meditate. It's very effective, but there are other means. But find something that's a practice and do it. Second one is identify your purpose in life. We've talked about that a little bit already, but purpose is just huge. And most of us, I taught at university for 20 years, mostly seniors that came out, and I can't remember how many discussions, but there were many. The seniors would come in and say, why are you here? And they'd say, well, mom and dad said it was engineering or business, and they'd pay for it. I really don't know why I'm here, and I say, well, next out is, job, marriage, house, mortgage. You're going to wake up and you're 50, so you might spend a little bit of time just figuring out, mom and dad did what they did and they're very appreciative for it, but what you want and who you are, and they'll survive if you tell them, it's not this, it's that. They might not be upset, but they'll survive, but finding your purpose is just so huge to motivation and success. If you're operating in something about who you truly are, it's not a job.
No.
You get up and just go, it's like, I'd assume be in the office is but I'm a skier. That's actually a lie. I'd rather be skiing, but I like being in the office. Anyway.
Eric, I have this belief about purpose, and it is that 2 things. One, when you say go find your purpose, you do that through action. You don't wait for it. I'm going to wait until I understand my life, right?
Yeah.
And it's sort of like, so go try different things. The other thing is you're in your purpose. Like the being is the purpose. Like be
your inner purpose.
Eckhart
Tolle, your inner purpose.
Yeah.
Is finding out who you truly are.
And then I have one more that I add to that, which is listen to the whispers. Like, are you being pushed? And that's probably some authority figure. Or if you listen to that thing you've put off, it's almost like a tug from your heart area, like I've got
Well,
to, I want to explore this. I really like, I'm drawn toward this, that. Like,
cultures is ingrained whispers in us, from schools, families to schools to governments. We become.
those are the shoulds. Those aren't necessarily the inner whispers. Like,
All right.
listen to the whispers. Like,
I'm not familiar with that modality that you're talking about. I'm familiar with inner voice, but what I've found is that people have found their purpose has been given to them by their shoulds.
yeah,
You should get you got to go to this college. You got to get this job. You do the marriage. You need the family is what you're supposed to be doing. Blah, blah, blah. And haven't taken the time to say, all that's good. It's gotten me this far and I'm not in a bad spot. But what do I see from here? Am I going to take control of this?
and that's the piece for me.
Go next.
Right? Is all the shoulds, that's somebody else's voice. That's somebody else's voice. That's the authority.
Right.
What's the inner draw? Like, it's where, for example,
what whispers have we ignored?
So let's go to your brother, right?
Yeah.
He was the artist.
Yes, poet.
So, you're supposed to be an athlete. You're supposed to be an engineer. You're supposed to be all these things. And he goes, I'm a poet. I'm a poet because that's what I'm drawn toward. And your parents may or may not have lost their minds.
They lost their minds. My dad lost his mind.
And everybody lived. And should they have chosen not to, that's their choice. But your brother lived truly into his purpose. You did athletics and still do. You did yoga and still do. You did business and still do. And at the same time, you took all of that and you said, and this is what it looks like. This is my life purpose, is to awaken others. I think that's cool.
So let's see if this aligns with your whispers. What we train people is to get their affirmations from here, from inside, not from outside. We've had, we've been, what a boy, attaboy, way to go. We got an A, did this, all we grow up. We've been trained to, Pavlov's dog of drool when we get when the bell goes off. Well, so how can we turn that and then start listening to ourselves? Because culture is never going to be happy with us. Culture is going to say this is the path, and in order to live purpose, our goal is to have a soul-driven life. To find our soul and to have it direct our ship. To have that, I have to get my affirmation from inside and not look for everybody attaboy, thing, or even a mindfulness practice. I mean, it's still much less accepted than more accepted. I mean,
the thing I love about mindfulness and meditation is there's no way to get external affirmation. Great job meditating there. It's that doesn't happen.
Well, it is easy to get laughed at. It's easy to get laughed at. That's why I tell people to keep it a secret. And until you're sure with your practice, you don't have to share it. Stay in the basement and do it. And then when you know with the results you've gotten, you can't get knocked off your game. And if you feel like sharing it, do. But do it for yourself.
It's about, and I think you and I are saying pretty much the same thing here, which is the internal affirmation. When you stop seeking external affirmation, you don't have to be in a place of, am I good enough? Because at that point you go, of course I'm good enough. Like this is me. I'm living my life now. Yeah. And that's the work, like to get to that place of
God made me. How dare you? Of course I'm enough. I'm perfect. Here I am.
Exactly.
I'm
perfect is exactly right. I'm perfect. And I like the idea of, and people will about that with, I have these flaws, and they'll start to list them. And it's like, then those are perfect flaws.
Accept them.
Right? They're perfect flaws. Otherwise, everybody'd be identical. How boring would the world be? It's great.
So those first two pillars create clarity. The third pillar is create clarity, vision, intention, commitment, and habits. So we need clarity to set our own vision, to make sure it's our own unique vision, not culture's vision of, what we should be doing, or our parents' vision, but our vision of it. What do we want to create? And then how do we live in it? I find I can train myself with habits. We are our habits, I believe. And I can train myself, my operating systems, that when I'm offline, not focused, it can still work towards my vision. But it's my habits that are required for that. So I said, but I have intention. Intention is at the subatomic level. It just moves things. My intentional things, it just moves things subatomically that you can't see on the surface, but it moves everything towards a goal if I'm living on purpose versus living on accident, where it's just all hairy, scary. But once I get focused on that, then I can move it. And now commitment and habits work together. I got to have the commitments to form the habits, but then the habits also support commitments. So when I get offline, when I get the virus, when I, go on vacation, when the crap hits the fan or whatever, and I get off my game a little, my commitment gets me back on. Daily, my habits are there. But if I have commitment and habits that aren't aligned, I don't have much of a chance of fulfilling. Why didn't I committed to doing that? Why didn't I do it? Well, because we're habitual creatures. Something like 95, 96% of the next action we take is just based on our past actions, So, but we can over time, and I believe it takes time. I don't think there's an instant fix. We're all looking for a quick fix, and I don't think this is this quick. But if we can get our habits and our commitments aligned and our visions aligned, intentions aligned with clarity, we got a shot at just having a fantastic life. Of really, despite all the ups and downs and everything else, with some clarity, we can move towards a life that's just, unimaginable almost. That's, wonderful in the face of adversity. So that's been my experience. And the rest of the pillars are more or less mindset, different mindsets of gratitude and service and not taking things personally. And then, they're training kind of things within the foundational pillars, but really pay a lot of attention to your habits, and that takes that's where mindfulness comes in, because habits are by design and by definition unconscious. They're just going. True. And you need to bring some consciousness, this flashlight on, to say, what am I well, I didn't even know I did that. Right. And what habits such as thinking, overthinking's a habit, anger's a habit,
That's great.
Judgment's a habit. All these kind of things, not just going to the gym and, taking a walk or smoking and drinking. There's all kinds of habits to pay attention to and to train ourselves, but we are trainable. It takes some effort. And I don't think you have to be perfect. I don't think that's even a thing. And it's certainly not what I aspire to. Well, but I do aspire. Yeah, I do aspire to a vision, yes. And I see more for the world than what we have.
That's so good.
I really see more for it. And the motivation for the book was saying, hey, business world, you can make a bigger difference. Still make money, still make profit. Profit's not your purpose. Profit's a result of a purpose-driven organization. It's a result of that, not the purpose itself. And it's necessary, it's required. I love capitalism, and capitalism could do with a higher dose of consciousness. And it would right its ship, because when you can do more, you need to do more. When you can give and be grateful and do those things and notice other people and be compassionate, capitalism is a wonderful system. It's so flexible, it's so creative. Now, I'm a real estate, I love to create things, So I don't want any other system, but I would love it if our system was a little more conscious, and the business community would kick the other politicians in the pants and say, hey, just move us, would you? Here's the goal. Here's the guardrails. Okay. Compromise and move us.
So true.
Because we're about moving the world, and we can't move, through the mountain. We're going to have to go over it or around it, something, but we need you to help remove it. And I think the business community in the end, when it starts hitting profits enough and they get fed up, are the ones that'll kick the can. We'll kick the people and say, hey, enough.
I think we're close to that. I think we're really close to
that. Well,
I'm
amazed how how resilient the economy is in the face of gridlock. In the face of all the divisiveness and
I think
disagreement
it's
and
in
everything.
spite of, right? I think it's
Yeah. What could it be? What could it be if we got aligned? I mean, we could change the whole earth, change the whole
amazing.
world if
So
we
true.
were a little more conscious and but you can't do it in a silo.
No. Which is what a great paradox, right? The whole mindfulness piece is so individual, right? Observe yourself. Observe your habits, observe your style, observe your reactions versus chosen responses. Observe. That's mindfulness. Be in that moment, and that's by definition a personal silo. And then you get a group of mindful people who affect others, who affect others, who affect others. And you can't help but change those around you, unless there's an imposition of a silo. And yeah, the intention has to be that we move beyond that we connect.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're born to connect.
True.
I mean,
very true.
We love to connect. We don't want to be silos.
Connect and acknowledge.
And that's a dysfunction of the mind.
It's
isolation is a dysfunction of the mind.
So true. That's the I see you piece before, hey, how are you? It's so easy to go, hey, how are you? Fine, good. Done my part. It's like, no, I see you. I'm going to take an extra 6 seconds just to say, I see you.
Yeah, that's where it starts. I mean,
right? Yeah.
It all starts with each one of it. If each one of us just took a little bit of responsibility on and just decided we're going to move the needle a little bit, this thing would move.
So true.
But if we're waiting for the other in Washington to get it straightened out, Wall Street to get it straightened out.
No, it starts with one.
The UN to get it straightened out. You got to work on yourself. And as you have opportunity, share. Share what you found.
It's so true. So good. No, for me, it starts with one. It starts with an accountable I, and then you get a group of accountable people.
And
right?
the beauty of it is that you change the whole world when you change yourself. You change your perception of it. And you also change how you act, and that changes how other people act towards you.
Very, very.
So my brother's example again is one person changes the world.
Yes.
Your world, it changes it. You see what you look for out there. You start looking for things to be grateful for. You see them. You start looking for people to see. They start noticing you. They start seeing you.
So true.
You start listening to people. They start listening to you, and to be seen and heard, that's better than any pile of gold you're going to find.
This is that, and that is gold. I want to wrap at this point because that is so powerful and so positive. Eric, tell us. Your program is called, I'm looking down at my notes. The program is called 12 Pillars of Mindful Leadership. The book is called Profit with Presence, and your website is called livinginthegap.com. Is that all?
.org. It's a nonprofit. Yeah. Living in the Gap, spelled out, .org.
Living in the Gap.
And in that, there's all kinds of free resources about how to get started, blog posts, description of any programs we have. You can sign up for a quarterly newsletter, those kind of things. You can download the book there, or it's available on Amazon. And the book is, at this point anyway, my best description of my overall philosophy, business philosophy and life philosophy, and what we take people through in 9 months in our program.
I think it's fabulous. The work you're doing is really, really so important.
I hope so.
Well, I think
we need to do something.
Yeah, exactly. You're living in your purpose.
Well, I couldn't sit by and say, and I'm not a politician. I'm not a podcaster. I just said, what can I do? Well, I'm a businessman. This is how we did it. Why don't we tell the story to how other people could take a recipe and get started? It won't be exactly our story, or it doesn't have to be cooked exactly that way, but to get a path to making a difference for your business and your family and your community, and still making a profit.
That's so great. Are you on LinkedIn?
I am.
Okay,
Yes.
so I'm going to spell your last name so that people can find you.
Great.
It's
That'd be awesome.
Eric, Eric, and the
Yeah.
last name is Holsapple, Holsapple. And
Awesome.
I'm gonna invite our audience members to reach out to you on LinkedIn.
Please, that'd be awesome.
Find you at livingинthegap.org and to look for your book, Profit with Presence. Love all of that. Eric, thank you for joining me. This has been really good. Really
good. Pleasure for me too, Dr. B. Thanks for having me on today.
Thank you. All right. Well, my guest today was Dr. I just found that out. Doctor, with your doctorate in economics, Dr. Eric Holsapple. Really great having you here. Thank you. This is One Sharp Sword, cutting through to what matters most. I'm your host, Dr. P, Dr. Wayne Pernell, the Exponential Success Coach, the president of Dynamic Leader Incorporated. And I will see you here next time. Thanks for tuning in. Please like and share this podcast. Looking to get some even greater growth. And you do that by spreading the word that we exist. So thanks for doing that. All right. We'll see you here next time. Thank you.